So today is my first entry in this video journal series. It's June the 9th, which makes it, is it 20 days since transplant?
Let's see, how am I gonna do it? Hold on. 23 to 31 would be 11. That's about 20 days.
About 20 days. I was in the ICU portion for, was it 11 days?
If you want to count it before surgery or after surgery.
I guess we could throw in those few days.
Okay, before surgery, you went into ICU on the 20th.
The 20th, yeah. And
the
then
evening of the 20th. And so to make it to the end of the month, that would have been the first 11 days. And then you came over here, was it June the 3rd? What? No. Oh, no. You didn't stay in the ICU through the 31st. I think you stayed in the ICU through like the, my calendar.
the details are somewhat fuzzy because it all unfolded so quickly. And
I'm looking at my calendar. You go ahead.
I was actually in the hospital for several days before getting new lungs. But the way I remember it and everything, it only felt like it was a day or two, but that's not correct.
Andy, I think you were in the ICU when you first got in and when you got out was probably 10 days, 9 or 10 days.
So yeah, my health was declining a lot, really starting in March. I wasn't having to use any oxygen consistently outside of sleeping and exercise. Got the flu, parainfluenza, and then all of a sudden I just needed oxygen around the clock. And by the time I got admitted, just before needing new lungs, I needed 40 liters at rest.
Yeah, 60% oxygen concentration.
Just to be kept alive. And
Pretty bad.
then they hooked me up to this machine called an ECMO, which is essentially a heart-lung bypass that'll oxygenate the blood because my body just couldn't anymore. And without that machine, I pretty clearly would have died. And once all the official paperwork and everything was submitted, I was listed on the 22nd and basically got the call that they had lungs for me within like 8 hours after that because my condition had just deteriorated so much. And then the surgery itself, the transplant, started early Wednesday morning around 9-ish.
No, Thursday morning.
It was Thursday?
Yeah, the surgery was on
It was the 23rd, but yeah,
23rd.
since I haven't had my watch with me, the
It's hard.
the days of the weeks and the number to correspond to them often get messed up. And they said it was a messy removal, which would make sense, but at the same time, it felt like the surgery happened pretty quickly. I think it was only like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So, and they usually say it takes 4 to 6. So maybe 4 hours is kind of longer. But in my mind, the surgery was the most anxiety-provoking time, but it was actually the easiest part of it because just as soon as I remember being admitted here and we got the call they had lungs for me, it felt like I was already waking up in the ICU and the transplant itself was over. And then that's when I guess the fun starts. Panic attacks came back again that I've only had, I could count on one hand the amount I've had in my life. And that goes back to my cancer days. So almost 10 years ago. which it's been a while, but the situation was just too great at the time, and it was just a constant state of panic. Not necessarily from breathing, just overwhelmed by the situation itself. Because even if it doesn't feel like I'm breathing right, I can see the data that says, well, that's just bad habits your lungs remember. The numbers say you're actually breathing better. And I'm not wearing oxygen too, so I mean, that's also an indicator. And I think the anxiety has gotten more under control, but it really made it difficult the first almost 2 out of 3 weeks I've been here so far. Depression, surprisingly, outside of what a normal amount to be expected, having to go through something like this, that wasn't a huge issue. Is definitely the anxiety part. I just found myself with like the heavy breathing, the kind of crushing feeling in my chest, cold sweats. But I think in adjusting medications and just getting stronger each day has helped bring that under control, and just learning how to not put myself or tilt myself, I guess, to situations where I know it's gonna kind of rile up my anxiety. I had a pretty good physical therapy session today. Up until today, it's been more so just kind of get me out in the halls and walk, which is important. But I also knew through little context clues that my legs were pretty weak. And that's probably understating it. We did some exercises today that, without like the use of my arms, if I could just stand from a sitting position, and I couldn't. My legs were or have deteriorated that much that without the use of my arms, I can't stand on my own, which this process has already been humbling, but that made it extra humbling seeing that I'm still kind of reduced to nothing. Even though I have the lungs, there's a lot more to it. And while in the back of my head, I knew that to be the case, it's different when you actually experience it. And I know there's like, we'll have a plan to address that. And I know over time I'll get stronger, because when I first woke up from the surgery in the ICU, I didn't even have enough strength to pull myself to the side of the bed, to roll, to even sit up in the bed. And I can do that pretty easily now. So it's going to require a lot of patience. I already picked up a small virus since being in the hospital. It doesn't necessarily appear that it's caused any damage, but I know that's going to be just an unfortunate reality of it, like it was before. I'll get sick a lot. It's just a matter of how my body's going to respond to it, because I'm on a lot of the same medications as I was before, but they added a couple other ones, and I can tell based on my blood counts that they are pretty strong medications. But hopefully over time my body will adjust and I'll be able to rebound somewhat to that, because it would kind of stink to finally have new lungs to breathe better, but I don't have any red blood cells to transport that properly oxygenated blood to where it feels like I'm still walking around with cement in my shoes. And when I go about making these videos, there's no clear format that I'm necessarily going to follow. I'm just going to kind of say what's on my mind that day, and it won't necessarily be an everyday thing. Usually, like if there's something noteworthy, or whether it be good or bad, or I just feel like journaling about, because I hand wrote a lot of my journal stuff during the leukemia days, and I still have it, but it's more interesting for the video blogging, I guess you could say, because although I can remember somewhat how I was doing as I was writing those journals, it's more interesting to me to like visually see how things change over time. Because the way I look now, and even though it's kind of tiring to just ramble on about this, I'll be able to look back eventually and just see the transformation that I've had along the way. And even though it's kind of labored talking right now, the way I'm talking right now, I couldn't do a month ago, like without my voice cutting out, just because my larynx was just shot from all the coughing I've done over the years. And I wouldn't have enough, like I couldn't read books to Avery or Ezra because I couldn't summon enough breath to both read and to keep breathing. So I usually had to defer the reading to Dana so that I could at least just be there in my own way. And we've been on the transplant path for 4 years, and there were times where I fought it, but it just had gotten so bad at this point that I was constantly having to lower my quality of life, like just constantly lowering the bar on what I can do to a point that it wasn't even about making concessions. It was just kindly surrendering to death, that there's just nothing more physically I could do besides exist. And that helped make it easier when it's like, right now we really need to do the transplant now. And it took a little longer than what I thought it was to get relisted, because I didn't anticipate being in a hospital prior to getting listed in the call. But that's just how it worked out in this case. And in the long term, it doesn't matter. It's just kind of a personal goal. There's no like stat that says if you do it one way or the other, it's going to be a better outcome. The statistics overall aren't great, but they weren't great for my cancer stuff either. And the statistics don't include you. They include who has come through already. So it's good reference points. You shouldn't just toss it out the window, but at the same time, you shouldn't bank everything on it either. And I guess we'll just kind of see what happens. I had 4 chest tubes to drain all the fluid off my lungs. I have 1 left. I kind of think they want to have that one out before discharging me, but we can't rush it because I don't want to have to get my chest drained all the time, because you could risk puncturing your lungs and readmission, and then just not make it more difficult than it has to be to shave off another day or 2. So my dad and Dana have been taking turns staying with me in the hospital and alternating at home, watching the kids. And my Uncle Mike and Aunt Lisa, they took the kids like for the first roughly week while we were kind of sorting through all the chaos of what was going on. And I know going into it, especially for Dana and for me too, despite like having to do the physical side of the transplant, it was who's going to watch the kids. It wasn't like during the cancer days where there were no kids, there was no wife either. It was just I just had to selfishly focus on me. But now there's more pieces involved, and I was just fortunate then because there were many people I've met along the way during the cancer days that were at where I'm at now, but they were doing it back when I didn't have to really worry about other responsibilities. And I occasionally meet people my age doing the lung transplant process, but so far, kind of like the cancer days, I feel like I'm the youngest person in the room. And I mean, that's fine in its own way, because they keep saying how great I'm doing because I'm younger, and I can appreciate that because it's a very physical process. As my chest heals more and I get discharged home, I'll probably do a video kind of showing the scars from that, but I definitely underestimated the kind of physical toll it would take. Like, I expected it to, endurance-wise, that was going to take time coming back, but the muscle breakdown and the loss of strength is definitely greater in my experience than I would have pictured before. I've lost, we'll call it, even though I was severely, had some edema going on, I was just like retaining so much fluid because my heart wasn't working right anymore. I couldn't process fluid the way my body needed to, but in the span of like 2 weeks, I've lost 20 pounds, which was very reminiscent of my cancer days, and tough to see because I call it my concentration camp look, because it just, when you know your body well enough, you can just look and see like how frail and weak it can become when you deal with like health incidents like this. And thankfully there's going to be time to bounce back, but it's just not a quick journey. And I'm lucky enough to have a good support system, because I'm on the transplant floor here at Methodist, and there's not just lung people here. They have heart, kidneys, pancreas, livers, and it looks like a lot of people. I mean, I haven't met everybody, but a lot of people are here by themselves, and that just seems very sad and a hard thing to go through. And maybe I'm just more emotionally sensitive to where I need that extra support, but I don't know how you could approach this by yourself. It seems like it's too big of a journey to undertake on your own. So I think that's a decent summary to open with. The previous video, the short one that I will post before this one, was, I think, several days before I got my new lungs. I wanted to document how I was, but at the same time, I was kind of out of it too, as you will see. You'll see how my breathing was pretty labored. I wasn't really making sense in whatever I was trying to say. I had the high flow oxygen on, and I still was not breathing well. And I just feel like this will be a better way to kind of chronicle this journey, and so others can see, because you can always tell people what you're going through and how it is, but it doesn't quite register. Even photos, you could kind of hide what suffering you're really going through. But when you're seeing it live, you can hide it to some degree. But if you're being honest with the audience, they'll see the physical and emotional demands that this process takes. And while this is also therapeutic for me, it'll allow others to see that it's not an easy journey. Sometimes what feels like a big problem in life may not be that big of a deal. And as much as I've been through, even I'm guilty to falling prey to fussing over stuff that really doesn't matter. And hopefully through these videos, if you find yourself in a position where it feels like everyone else has it figured together, you could probably rest assured that that's not the case. We're just all used to seeing everyone's high moments. Because if you post your low moments, it's either, oh, I don't want to be bummed out by that, or they're just seeking attention. And sometimes both things can be true. But these, for the most part, will be just raw, unedited videos, unless for some reason I have to pause in between and just kind of show what it's like being me, at least of lately. It would have been some excellent footage if I had started this a month or two ago, but I was just doing so poorly that I had no interest in that. I was just trying my best to survive. And I think that's all I have for now. Until next time.